Hi, I'm Sean with Team Ricochet Airsoft, and today we are going to be reviewing the KWA LM4 Magpul Edition. Now, before we continue on with this review, I'm going to give you a brief history of the real steel M4, and I emphasize brief because the real steel M4 has gone through so many changes and has been around so long and has such a history that to review that gun in its entirety would be a long review on its own. So with that said, let's move on to the history. There are basically two different types of M4s. You have the M4 Carbine, which is semi-automatic and 3-round burst, and then you have the M4A1, which is based off of the M16A1, that is semi-automatic and full automatic. Now, depending on what M4 you use and where you look, the rate of fire will range from 700 all the way to 950 rounds per minute. Now, the main thing that really separates the M4 from the M16 is the fact that it has a shorter barrel, it's lighter, and its stock is fully adjustable, which makes it a more versatile weapon and more effective in close-quarter combat scenarios. So, now that we've given you a really brief history of the M4, let's move on to our review of the KWA LM4 Magpul Edition. Now, one of the first things you're going to notice with this weapon is it is extremely well constructed. There are no squeaks, rattles, moans, or groans, or anything with this gun. It is easily one of the most solid airsoft rifles that you are ever going to hold, regardless of price. I mean, it is truly a remarkable piece of machinery. And since this is the Magpul Edition, you spend the extra money for this LM4 for the Magpul parts. The Magpul parts include the stock, foregrip, the alloy Magpul receiver, which does have licensed Magpul PTS trademarks, and the PMag. Now, the PMag on this gun I would not recommend to anyone unless you really care about the looks of the PMag and the fact that it's polymer. Otherwise, you're better off getting the regular KWA LM4 mag, because this magazine right here is $60, not counting shipping and handling, and it only holds 38 rounds, where the KWA regular LM4 mag is $40. It holds 40 rounds, so it kind of makes no sense to really go with the PMags unless you care about the look that much. Now, the magazines on this gun is actually kind of cool, because if you look at the tip of it, you'll realize that the feeding tip on this gun is made out of plastic instead of metal, and it's a separate piece. So if you drop the magazine, the plastic teeth will just fly off the magazine, saving damage to it, so you only have to spend a few bucks to get the new top for the magazine instead of spending another $40 to $60 for an entire new magazine. So it's kind of a cool thought. Now, the issues that I'm aware of on this gun is, one, the magazines. I've never run into any issues with the magazines so far, thankfully, but a lot of people have. There's quite a few people out there that complain about the gas seals leaking and various other issues. The gun itself also has an interesting hop-up unit. Now, the hop-up unit on this gun is located behind the breech and more towards the barrel. You can see it, it's completely, it's got a tooth configuration on it, and they give you a hop-up adjustment key. So what most people do is you take the hop adjustment key, go through the barrel, try to line it up and finagle into position until it is lined up, then adjust it accordingly. Now, what a lot of issues have come up from this is the fact that the teeth on the hop-up unit get worn away, which makes it more difficult to adjust and even use. So what I would recommend doing is pop out the back pin in the receiver and go in with the hop-up unit from that way. It's more time-consuming and a little bit more confusing, but it saves your hop-up unit, so to me it's worth it. The only other complaint I have with this gun, and this is me being pretty nitpicky, is the front sling mount. As you can tell, it kind of floats a little bit freely. It's not that it's going to come off, it's just it's a little bit too free in its movement. So what I have done is, when I do play, I'll take a little bit of electrical tape it to the bottom of this so I don't sound like a jingle bell running through the woods. And other than that, KWA has put a whole lot of R&D into this gun. It looks and functions like the real thing. So if you can work an M4, or you know how to work a real steel M4, then you know how to work this. First time using it, you sit there, slap a magazine in it, pull the charging handle back, it's loaded. When you empty the magazine, the bolt will lock back into position, and all you have to do, hit the bolt catch, the bolt will slam forward, you're good to go. It's a very simple operating weapon. As far as maintenance on it, just clean the barrel, lube it every now and again after you use it, and the takedown is like a real M4, so if you have an idea how to do that, then you're going to have no problems with this gun. Now, something that KWA likes to advertise is the gun does 13 rounds a second, and it'll empty an entire 38 or 40 round magazine regardless of weather in full auto, which is pretty impressive to sit there and empty an entire magazine on one gas charge on full auto without having it crap out on you. But obviously, if you do sit there and leave it in full auto for that long, you are definitely going to get the cooldown effect. I know, I've tried. Now, for those of you who don't really know what the cooldown effect is, it is where you fire the gun a lot, it gets cold, and because it gets cold, it loses power and it becomes more inconsistent than it would when it was fresh. Now, for you to really use full auto effectively on this gun, you're going to have to keep it to short, controlled bursts. Otherwise, your cooldown effect is going to become more noticeable. The gun itself is rated at 370 to 390 FPS out of the box, depending on the weather conditions and where you're chronoing. The only other things I really have left to say about this gun is it has a great effective range of 200 feet and beyond, and the semi-automatic function is very crisp and very smooth. But now that we have gone over the first impression of this gun and some of the basic specs, let's see how it does shooting it. This is the field test portion for the KWA LM4 Magpul edition. As you can see behind me, there are 3 targets marked on white on the trees. The one furthest back is 200 feet, the one in the middle is 150 feet, and the closest one to you is 80 feet. I will start off engaging the 200-foot target, then the 150-foot target, and then the 80-foot target, and then we'll see what we find. I will engage the 200-foot marker in semi-automatic. I will now engage the 150-foot marker. Finally, I will engage the 80-foot marker. Alright, so I have the targets from our test shooting. So let's start off with the 80-foot marker. As you can tell, the cluster is pretty nice, and I didn't really get a chance to wail on that target that much before it fell down, so obviously 80 feet semi and full is very effective. So here I have the 150-foot marker. As you can tell, we have 1, 2, 3, 4 puncture marks and then a couple dimples in there. So they actually did fade when you doubled the distance, but it's still effective at 150 feet, as you can tell. You can engage beyond 200 feet with this gun. So let's wrap this review up. So in conclusion, I'll give this gun a 9 out of 10. There's only 3 reasons why I don't give this gun a perfect score, and the main issue is the magazines. Even though I've never come across any real issues with the magazines on this gun, there are a lot of people out there that have, and I feel like with a gun this expensive and magazines that are that pricey, there shouldn't really be hardly any issues with them to begin with. Second, I wish that the hop-up adjustment system was a little bit easier to adjust on the fly, especially with changing in temperatures going on. And finally, even though this gun doesn't have the same kind of gas issues as a lot of gas guns does have, it still has a little bit of the cooldown effect, and we could see that when I was starting to pull the trigger pretty fast. But other than those issues, this is an amazing rifle, and I would highly recommend it to anyone. This gun has proven to be 370 to 390 FPS out of the box. It does 13 rounds a second. You can sit there and take the 38 or 40 round magazines and it will empty it in one full auto trigger pull without running out of gas, which is pretty impressive. If you do have an aware state of mind with the trigger, you can get a single charge of gas to last you 2 magazines. I know I've done it. But also, it's just such a beautiful gun. I mean, it's one of the most solid guns I've ever held, and it's probably one of the nicest airsoft guns I've ever seen out there in my entire life, and that's pretty impressive to say. So overall, I think KWA did an amazing job on this rifle, and for anyone that's looking for a great milsim weapon or just something that is really fun to shoot, I would highly recommend this gun. Yeah, it's expensive to get started because the mags are a minimum of $40 a pop, but once you start shooting it, it really is a blast. I'm Sean. Thank you for watching my review of the KWA LM4 Magpul Edition. Please stay tuned for my next review on the KWA SR10.